Bonjour la classe and welcome, bienvenue to another session of French. So, today we're going to continue our lesson in greetings, farewells, and well-being. Okay? So today we're going to learn how to ask somebody how he or she is doing. And we're going to also learn how to respond when someone asks us how we are doing. Okay? So, with no further ado, let us start. Allons-y. Bonjour, comment ça va? So as you can see, this is our title page, right? So immediately you're seeing one of the ways that you can say, how are you in French? Comment ça va? We already know that bonjour means good morning or good afternoon or simply hello. But comment ça va means how are you? Literally, comment means how, ça means that, and va means go. Okay? Now you're going to see various forms of the verb to go in this presentation, right? But this is the first form that you're going to see, va, V-A. Now, notice that the C has a little tingly thing underneath it. That's called a cedilla, and that is an indication that the C should be pronounced softly, like an S, all right? So, comment ça va? So how that goes, that's literally what it means. It's almost like saying, how's it going? All right? Comment ça va? We're going to learn another variation of this expression as we continue. But first, let me introduce you to the characters of today's video. So first we have Krista. She's a Jamaican in France. And then we have Marie Chantal, who is Krista's classmate. Then there's Saïd, Krista's friend. And then, of course, we have Monsieur Laurent. Monsieur Laurent, that is Krista's teacher. And notice, Monsieur Laurent. She's not calling him by his first name. She's calling him Mr. Laurent, Monsieur Laurent. Okay, let's look at the conversation between Krista and Marie Chantal. Coucou Marie Chantal, ça va? Salut Krista, ça va bien, merci. Et toi? Okay, so we're seeing some of the expressions we know already, right? The greetings. Coucou, salut. These are expressions we know to mean hello. But what about ça va? We saw before that the question comment ça va means how's it going or how are you? Ça va is a diminutive form. It's a shorter way to say the same thing, like what's up, what's cracking, okay? Ça va, and of course my voice raises because it's a question, so it raises at the end. Ça va? And of course, how does Marie Chantal respond? She says, ça va bien, merci. Ça va bien, merci. Ça va bien. So she means here, when she says ça va bien, she means literally that goes well. Bien means well or good, right? So by saying ça va bien, she's saying everything is fine. I am well, okay? So ça va bien is how you say everything is fine, I am fine. And of course, merci means thank you. So I'm fine, thanks. Okay? Et toi, so that's the last part there. The T-O-I, toi. Et toi. But what does that mean? Well, when Marie Chantal is asking Cristal, et toi, she's turning around the question back to her by asking her, what about you? And you? That's literally what et toi means. And you. Notice the OI is pronounced wa. So that's why, it might look a bit strange, but that's how OI is pronounced in French. Et toi? So how does Crystal respond to Marie Chantal's question? She responds, ça va, merci. Ça va, merci. But wait, isn't she missing a word? Isn't it supposed to be ça va bien? Well, in French, you can simply respond when someone asks you, ça va? You can simply respond, ça va. So, you're just repeating the same thing, but with a different intonation. And that means the same as ça va bien. It means I'm okay, I'm fine, everything is going well. All right? And of course, Marie Chantal responds, super, great, au revoir. And Krista responds, à plus tard. We know these expressions to mean goodbye and see you later. All right? What about when Krista is speaking to her good friend Saïd? Let's see this conversation. Bonsoir Krista, comment vas-tu? Coucou Saïd, je vais bien merci. Et toi? Alright, so look here. Let's say it one more time so that you hear the pronunciation. Bonsoir Krista, comment vas-tu? Coucou Saïd, je vais bien merci. Et toi? Okay, so you can play this over and over again until you hear it and you're able to pronounce it just the same. Alright? So, bonsoir, we know what bonsoir means, good evening. Comment vas-tu? What does that mean? Well, we know comment ça va. We know what comment means. We've seen va before, but it didn't have an S, so what's this? Well, this is one of the other forms of the verb to go, right? The verb to go in French in its base form is aller, which we'll see later on. But this is another way to say go in French based on the person who's speaking. So because he's asking Krista, comment vas-tu? The tu there means you, informal you, okay? So this is the informal you. So tu means you, but in an informal way. So when he's asking her, comment vas-tu? It's another way of saying comment ça va in an informal way. All right? Literally, what does this mean? Comment means how, va means goes or go, and tu means you in the informal form. All right? So he's basically saying, how are you going? What's going on with you? How are you doing? What's up? Okay? But really and truly, the translation is, how are you doing? But for an informal situation, right? So what does Krista respond to Saïd? She says, je vais bien, merci. Et toi? So we know a few expressions already. We know merci, we know bien, and we know et toi. So what could she really be saying here? Well, when she says je vais bien, it's another form. The vais, the V-A-I-S, vais, is another form of the verb meaning to go, the verb aller. So, she's saying I vais go bien, well, okay? So it's like she's saying, I am doing well, I am fine. So, je vais bien. So when someone asks you, comment vas-tu? You can respond, je vais bien. So je vais bien is essentially a way to say I'm fine. So another way of saying ça va bien or ça va. Okay? So just remember this construction. We'll get back to the whole vais, va situation soon. Now let's continue with our conversation. Moi aussi je vais bien. Moi aussi je vais bien. Look again, the OI is pronounced wa. Moi aussi je vais bien. So we know what je vais bien means already. It means I'm doing fine. But what is moi aussi? Well, if you recall, toi is you. So moi would be, you've guessed it, me. Aussi means also. So, or too. So by saying moi aussi, you're saying me too. So in essence, he's saying me too, I'm fine. Or I'm also fine. Or I'm fine as well. Moi aussi je vais bien. Okay? Then he tells her à la prochaine, which means see you next time. She says salut, bonne soirée. Salut meaning bye in this situation since they're leaving each other, and bonne soirée meaning good evening. Now, let's look at a formal encounter between Krista and Monsieur Laurent, her teacher. Now remember, they have a formal relationship. He's her teacher and she's his student. So look at the difference in the construction. Bonjour Monsieur Laurent, comment allez-vous? Bonjour Krista, je vais bien merci. Et vous? Now look, the construction kind of remains the same, but there are a few differences when it relates to the vocabulary. So we see bonjour Monsieur Laurent, we already know what that means. Comment, we know what comment means, but what is this part about comment allez-vous? The allez-vous, where did that come from? Right? Well, if it were an informal situation, she would have asked, let me see if you would remember. I'll give you 3 seconds. I wonder if you said the correct thing. So the correct thing would have been, comment vas-tu? Okay? Well, comment vas-tu? That would be the informal way of saying it if she and her teacher were friends, but no, they're not friends. They're teacher and student. So, she's asking the same thing but in the formal way, which is comment allez-vous? So, aller is a form of the verb to go, as you'll see down below to the bottom right corner of the screen. And it basically means to go, right? So you have je vais, as in je vais bien, tu vas, as in comment vas-tu, and vous allez, as in comment allez-vous. We're switching it around a little because it's a question. We'll learn that later. All right? How does Monsieur Laurent respond? He says, bonjour Krista, je vais bien merci. What's the different part now? Et vous? So he didn't say et toi? No, because they have a formal relationship. So they use the word vous when they're saying you. Now, this is something that we have to learn in French. There's a difference between formal and informal relationships, and the way you say the word you differs based on that relationship. If we have a friendly relationship, I say tu, and of course, et toi. But if we have an informal relationship, a friendly relationship, I say tu, and you, and I say et toi. But if we have a formal relationship, we say vous and et vous. Okay? And of course, the different ways of conjugating the verb aller go along with that. All right? Of course, let's end their conversation. Ça va bien, merci. Bon après-midi. À vous aussi. Oh my God. Bon après-midi. À vous aussi, Krista. Okay, so we see here, right? She responds by saying, ça va bien, merci. I'm doing well, thanks. Have a good afternoon. Bon après-midi. And he says, à vous aussi, Krista. What does that mean? À vous aussi. It means, we know what aussi means also, right? So vous, we know what that means. You. What about a? A means to. So, basically, he's saying, you too, Krista. À vous aussi, Krista. So that's where we'll end our presentation today, girls. Let's do a recap. What do you remember? Informal ways of saying, how are you, and responding to it, and as well as the formal ways, and the possible responses. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can pause the video to see this later. Au revoir.